Welcome to Front Runners Innovate, where we connect you to global leaders meeting the world's challenges through business and innovation. Our guest for this episode is Angela Wilbourn, who is an Area Development Director at United Negro College Fund, otherwise known as UNCF. Angela's tremendous background in fundraising and program development brought her into the UNCF family, but I would wager that what is keeping her there is a solid philosophy and practice in ethical management of people and processes. You'll no doubt agree as you learn about Angela and her work to create big opportunities for students, education, and historically Black colleges. Co-hosting with me today is Terry Briggs, who introduced us to Angela. Terry is the CEO and chairman of the On the Verge Foundation, which focuses on tech entrepreneurship and inspiring innovation. Now, I'm your host, Mary Kurek, CEO of Frontrunners Development, a global business development consultancy that connects business to change the world. And it is my pleasure to connect you right now to Angela Wilbourn and Terry Briggs. Well, here we are back on another episode of Front Runners Innovate. And I'm so glad everybody's with me today to talk to these two individuals who I adore. I'm coming to adore Angela because I just met her not long ago. But the person who I really adore that allowed me to actually get to know Angela is sitting in front of us right now. Terry Briggs, thank you so much for this introduction to Angela and for all that you do on The Verge. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Angela, welcome, and thank you for being here. And these two folks are joining me from California today. So we have an East Coast, West Coast thing going on today. So we will appreciate that diversity for sure.
It's not a rivalry, though. It's not a rivalry, even though it's warm in here.
Well, Terry, we have known you for a little while in the Front Runner community and some different capacities. And I want you to update us and let us know what's going on with you now with On the Verge.
Absolutely. I do have to say, though, it's really exciting because I think, Mary, the first time I met you, I was doing a lot of work with my good friend Katina Mobley, and doing some, I think, entertainment stuff for I can't remember what we were doing specifically around, fatherhood and some great things that Katina was focused on. Can't remember. It was like during the pandemic, I believe it was. So, we appreciate you for the work that you've been doing consistently for years, impacting a lot of people and creating this great platform for people like myself and people all around the world. So thank you so much. But yeah, really excited. I'm always really excited. You hear me say that a lot. What we're doing at On the Verge, we're a fairly startup nonprofit organization. We considered ourselves a foundation slash institute. We like to see ourselves as a research think tank, kind of like impact fund. Our whole goal is to solve global challenges through the lens of entrepreneurship, innovation, or whatever is needed, focused on under-resourced communities, Black, brown, women, where we're working with, of course, entrepreneurs, but also the communities as well. Everything from, credit challenges, from access to capital, different industries, and facilitating these communities and entrepreneurs and innovators in conversations that they're normally not into, whether it's, from solar industry to whatever it is. It just doesn't matter. Our goal is to get more under-resourced, underrepresented communities into these conversations, into these industries, into these opportunities that would normally not exist if it wasn't an organization like ours and UNCF or some of the other great organizations to tackle those challenges. So, we see ourselves as not just US based, but of course global as well. Some of the work we're trying to do, like in Africa and different places like that, South America. So that's kind of what we're focused on right now, and partner up with great people like you and Angela with the Silicon Valley chapter of UNCF and the incredible work that they're doing. Oh my God, I can't wait for her to tell you about it. But that's kind of how we see ourselves.
That's fantastic. I want to put this bridge between the two of you because I do know that you did an event with UNCF San Francisco, and I don't know if that's where you guys formulated your, the beginning of your relationship, or maybe it was already there before them. You want to talk just a little bit about that, Terry, and then we'll move over.
Yeah, it's very interesting thing. Was introduced actually to the work that Angela is doing through actually one of your partners, Rob. And one day he sent me a link to a Chad Womack at UNCF, and he sent me. I said, "Hold on, I know a Chad Womack. Chad Womack, and his partner mentored me in the beginning of my career back in 2000 and maybe 2011-ish, 12-ish. I can't remember, some years ago. And so they mentored me and was super pivotal in my career of understanding everything from pitching investors to, you know, doing the pitch deck to just understanding the startup culture and introduced me to Silicon Valley and all that. So, and I hadn't spoken to Chad for years. I've spoken to his partner, but I haven't spoke to Chad in years. So when I saw that, I was like, man, this is amazing. So then I had an opportunity to meet Angela there in San Francisco. I think it was a thing with Duracell, a meetup, their EV charging division. And so I had a chance to meet Angela there, and I had an opportunity. She invited us to their event they did in March, which is incredible, life changing for me.
Is that the
Uh,
Arise event?
I believe it was the Arise event to see the incredible work that they're doing, which made me a believer in her specifically, Chad for sure. But I got really excited about Angela because of her heart and her passion and how serious she is about the work that she's doing. I tell her all the time, she's very intoxicating, the way she believes in the work that she does. And I brought a friend there as well, who's also in private equity, and he feels the same way about Angela. And so everybody that I introduced that's close in my circle, they feel the same way about her and her commitment to the work that she does. But they exposed us to relationships through Pixar. I think it was Google. We had opportunity, Pixar, Google, Plug and Play, all these great organizations. And they had these incredible HBCU founders come in and gave me an opportunity to speak to, the HBCU founders. So just to see the work that they're doing and they're really serious about it, and they're creating a real opportunity for people who wouldn't normally have those type of opportunities to be in those environments. So that's how I initially came to know and now love Angela and of course Chad and the work that they're doing there in Silicon Valley.
That's so good that Angela, if I were you, I would make sure I keep this recording and this will become your endorsement and add it to your CV. That was
I know. It's like, oh, how much do I have to pay you?
Oh my God.
Thank you, Terry. So that brings us to Angela. For those of you that are listening, of course, HBCU, historically Black colleges and universities is what we're referring to. And of course, UNCF is the United Negro College Fund. And Angela, in your work there, I don't know how long you've been there, but I know it's been a little while. But before we kind of get to what you're doing there specifically, as I mentioned before we get on, is I always like to know people's why, what brought them into the work that they're doing. So give us a little bit of a snapshot of your background, if you will, and share with us the why.
When I think about it, my why probably started in middle school. I was always that student that was really into my education, wanted to be a leader, was that core for friends that would not normally meet each other. I was the bridge to making sure those were not seen or heard, to make a space for them to feel comfortable. So I knew early on in my life I had a special gift in bringing people together. And then I competed for Youth of the Year. I was very involved with the Boys and Girls Club, right? And I won Tennessee Youth of the Year, which was a big thing. Matter of fact, that led me to meeting Oprah Winfrey before she was famous. We were all sent to Chicago and she was the guest speaker. At that time, she wasn't even syndicated. And
oh my God. Was there ever a time she wasn't famous? You cannot be that old.
Right. I think she was like still on radio and just really getting her footing in Chicago. And she was the guest speaker. And I remember sitting and listening to her. And I was like, I want to be like her. She was just about her business, and her voice and tone just made everyone feel so special. And so then went on an academic scholarship to Spelman College and majored in political science. And at that time, my hope was to be a lawyer, and thinking being a lawyer, I could help people, particularly those in underserved communities. But when I did my senior year internship, I was like, that is not for me. So what am I going to do? So my first job out of college was with a company in San Francisco, Prodigy Services, and it was the first online company. And I was actually in marketing and sales. And it was just such an easy experience for me, right? It came very easy. I was always very good with stewarding my client, getting them to move from ground zero to where they needed to be. And so I started to really hone in on that skill. Leaving that job, knowing that I was very good with executives, marketing, pushing products and everything, I then started to work for a company and I was their grant writer. And I never understood why I took that job, but I stayed for 7 years, and it was a African American husband and wife. And I remember them being a small business, a certified company. And she used to tell me, you may not understand it now, but these skill sets you will need in the future, right? So at the early age of 23, 24, I was spending long hours responding to state, federal, local RFPs. I would go out and have these meetings with people probably twice my age, and it was from writing the proposal to uh, stewardship, customer service. So I began to learn a lot, and I was like, "Hi, this is not really what I want to be doing in my teens." But I started to see that the skill set was going to become very important in my career, but I didn't know exactly what it was. And I've always had this really creative component to me. My family are entrepreneurs, so I was able to, balance being in corporate and then also having this free spirit of entrepreneurship. But the thing that was a common denominator for me is that I always wanted to make sure people were okay. And those who did not have a voice or was not seen, how could me, with my ecosystem, my partnerships, bring those individuals to the table? And I was just doing it out of the kindness of my heart. But as I started to develop and mature in my career, I had a client say, "You would be excellent in development work, fundraising." And I was like, I don't want to raise money for anyone, no. And so I was working for the Oakland Museum on the development team and responsible for several things, fundraising, but also from business development, sponsorships, and building out our supporting programs that would. The question on the table at that time, Oakland Museum was going through a renovation and reopening, right? And so we were having these conversations. How can we get minority communities to the museum? And if you understand, the museum world is not something that minority or underserved communities just think about going as, for an hour, right? Our biggest community was the fourth graders. It was part of their curriculum. So we would see fourth graders Tuesday through Friday. I used to say, me being one of the few African Americans in the museum world, which is very few, when you think about the executive and administrative side of the work, you see very few African Americans. And so I was always tasked with, what are your thoughts? How do we get Black donors involved? How do we get the Black community to come and visit the museum? So there were intense and in-depth questions around equity or racism and how Blacks felt when they would visit places like museums. So I often spearheaded those conversations to bring or make people feel that it was okay to talk about those things. So I was with the Oakland Museum for about 8 or 9 years and did great work there, learned a lot. I was part of the major opening for the renovation of the museum. I was the first to introduce Friday nights at the museum, which has become a national thing. Oakland Museum was the leader in that. And then other museums started Thursday nights, if you notice. And so I am proud to say I was part of that group that spearheaded and brought the concept and the idea to fruition, where we were bridging the gaps with communities, and it just became so popular. And I'm just so happy to see that several museums are still doing that. And we just started because we thought the idea was people come together around conversation and food, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
was the anchor of those Friday nights out and Thursdays at the museums and stuff. So I've worked on a lot of brilliant programs, high network donor events, and I've always been sought after. We need Angela on the team with the creativity, with the passion, or the safe space to bring people together that normally would not sit and talk together, or able to carry conversation where they felt maybe they weren't heard or they were indifferent or anything. So I've brought a lot of peace to situations that I see could have not gone the way that many thought could go. And so I started to understand where my gifts were. And then I went to Children's Hospital and was there for a few years, was part of their campaign, again, dealing with high network events, donors, and things like that, still being able to use my business side and my creative side. And then came to UNCF and been here for almost 10 years. And I want people to really understand that the work that I do may be fundraising as a job title, but this is my assignment. I feel like it's a spiritual assignment, it's what I'm supposed to do. And I just do it through fundraising. But all I am doing is building relationships, ecosystems for HBCU students, faculty, Black founders, business people like Terry, creating safe spaces where we can change mindset, think collectively how we can make impactful work in a way that you don't have to do it alone, right? So
Yeah.
everyone's done it in the way that we all know that if you focus, you can get or do something by yourself. But what if we all came together collectively with a higher goal to make impact on a national level? So that is where my focus is now. That's where the type of events that I'm developing is just not intellectual, but it's social, because I believe adults network better when there's social activations involved there. But I'm very strategic in how I think to get people to move to the bigger goal, right?
Right. Right.
And so with today's philanthropic and political landscape, it's time for us to reimagine, rethink how we do and move and engage people.
I'm going to ask you a quick question. I'm going to turn it over to Terry to make a comment
Okay.
or ask. But from the standpoint of operationally what you do, could you explain how when donors give money and how that relates to the programming that you do? Because I know you concentrate on STEM. So first tell us the areas in STEM that you concentrate on. And then if you could just share a little bit about how that works with UNCF proper, the whole umbrella organization. Because I'm not sure
Yes.
people understand how that is.
Well, United Negro College Fund, UNCF, we are the largest organization outside of the federal government that provide financial support to underserved students. Our mission is to get students to and through college. So a lot of people know us by the scholarship awards, right? Or through the telethon that we used to do heavily in the 70s.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of work besides just scholarships. We have signature programs nationally, particularly STEM, that is ran by Dr. Chad Womack, who is a two-time Morehouse graduate, undergrad, and then Morehouse Medical. And he's a scientist by heart and has done a tremendous job in designing programs that would really prepare our students for the real world. So sitting here in San Francisco, Silicon Valley, for the past 13 years, we have been bridging Silicon Valley Bay Area to our HBCUs, which sits in the South and Southeast region. I think the closest school to us is a Texas school. So the work that we do is to help our students step outside of their everyday space and come to an area like the Bay Area that allows them to dream, reimagine, and really to understand the various ways that they can use their degrees. A lot of those students, 80% are engineer students. So they're focusing on computer science technology, computer tech entrepreneurship, research and development, gaming. And so each year we expand or add a vertical. So like this upcoming 2025 summit, we'll be adding certification opportunities for the semiconductor space. So every year, as the economy and various industries are moving, our goal is to make sure that our faculty and our students understand what is at hand, what opportunities there are, and have a seat at the table so that when decisions are made within these corporations or industries, that there is a voice that's representing our Black and Brown people. Now, we serve everybody, but we particularly want to make sure our Black people understand what is at hand, and again, how to maximize your education, certifications, and not just be an employee, but become entrepreneurs so that we can talk about you not just as an employee, but also generational wealth. So we are doing many things and providing resources and opportunities that they would not normally get.
Right. Terry, you've got any comments or questions?
No, I love that. I think I learned a lot, even more about Angela and her
I
background.
figured you would.
Yeah, and it's really exciting. And again, I think as your listeners and really tap into the work that they're doing, especially in the Silicon Valley area, they'll feel just as excited about Angela and her team and the work that they're doing as much as we do. I would like to say something because I know I get an opportunity to speak to Angela quite often, and one of the things Angela you talk about is collective. You mentioned today about collective working together. I know that's true to your heart. Can you speak a little bit more on why you feel like collective thinking or working as a group and collective economics, group economics, why that's so important? Because especially in a lot of our communities, we talk about how we think individually, right? It's just what we have going on, but not realizing that the power is in the group economics and it's working together. So can you speak a little bit more on kind of like your philosophy on bringing people together to solve issues?
Yeah, my thought about that is a twofold thought process. One is from the philanthropic world, with a brand like UNCF, 80 years young. It is easy. Well, I wouldn't say easy, but there is a higher opportunity for us to be before decision makers, right? Because of the volume of work that we do and the impact that we have. But when you look at smaller nonprofits that's doing great work in the trenches with the students, they often have challenges in the fundraising part, right? So my hope, and I get to work on both sides, with the executives from corporations, but then I also have built relationships with the smaller groups that's doing or teaching in the classrooms. They have the after school programs, and they're always wondering, how do we get the funding to sustain, right? And it's unfortunate because the philanthropic world has changed just in the last couple of years to how they give, what data and an impact they want to see. And when you think about these smaller organizations, they may not have that, but they're doing the real work. So I started about 6 years ago, starting to have the conversation with Dr. Chad Womack and others to say, how can we come to collectively and support one another? We are a big organization, but we are tasked with a lot of work that we could do better if we had partners that's in the classrooms, because we don't have the staff to necessarily be in the classroom. So my thinking was, how could we collectively come together and position ourselves comprehensively, well, in a way to ask for comprehensive dollars, right, to do the work. It's full circle. And I know a lot of organizations are now beginning to align themselves with companies who have the same goals, objectives, and stuff. So I said, let me dig a little deeper. So my goal is, let me identify partners who's doing the great work so that we can learn. But in the same time, when we're looking for partners or contractors and stuff, we know exactly who we can support. So there are high standards to be a part of the ecosystem, but it is a learning opportunity. We're learning because we're 80 years old, but there are some things that we need to pivot on. They're learning to what our sustainability has been for 80 years. So it's a give and take. And so in order for us to survive and for smaller organizations to survive, if you could just imagine how powerful we could be if we came together in alignments and things. Because when you really think about it, we are fighting for the same resources. We're fighting for the same pockets of underserved communities and things like that. So I am a firm believer, you don't have to reinvent or recreate sometimes. It's just strengthen it. And everybody has a strength that they can bring to the table to make it really transformative, impactful. The data begins to show you as a smaller founder or executive of a nonprofit, it can sometimes be lonely. You can feel overworked, you can feel stressed out when it comes to the programmatic part, managing your staff, operational, just all the things that come with it. So my statement is, let's be smart about it. What can we do to change how we do business, how we move, how we support? Because at the end of the day, it's about sustainability. It's about changing lives, right? Making impact.
Yeah.
So the question on the table for me Is how do we do that in a way that it is respectful, it is loving, it's not competitive, but competitive. It's like your partners, right? We all
Right.
have goals, but what if we did it together and got there together?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that personally. I think that was one of the things, and Mary, I don't know, I know we've had some conversations as well. That's one of the things I think I got out of the relationship with Angela and have an opportunity to visit with them back in March and, being invited in to see what they were already doing. So as you know, when on the verge, when we first started, of course, wanted to come out the gate running. But one of the things I realized, I said, hey, let's pause, let's wait. And for me, just like Angela, it's a spiritual thing for me. It's a legacy thing for me. It's not just another organization. And I also knew that we didn't want to form just another nonprofit who were just giving out book bags and struggling to raise capital. That's not who we are. I saw my mother do that. My mother's had a nonprofit organization for over 20 years, serving women who've been sexually and domestically abused. My mother used to get homeless people off the street as a kid. Back home in Virginia, I used to go back to my low income housing development. I created a thing. It was called was it called the America Dream Again Project or something like that? It was called. So I've been around and seen multiple like organizations do things, and like Angela said, whether they don't stick, maybe they run out of capital, or they're just struggling, and it's just like saying, "Hey, I just have an organization," but it's not making real, forget global impact. I mean, real citywide impact because they're trying to figure out, or they're coming out of their pocket a lot. So for us, it was important for us to kind of sit back, pause, and figure out how did we want to show up in the world, right? So when we first started, we were, we mentioned incubator, accelerator, and we will have some components of that. But what I realized is, there's already incredible organizations like UNCF doing certain type of work, right? So seeing the work that they're doing, seeing how intelligent and how smart, how committed these HBCU students were, right? Looking at their pitch decks, first of all, their pitch decks were already next level, right?
Yeah.
And myself having a background in tech, I've been funded multiple times. I had an exit with one of my tech startups, so I've been into the Silicon Valley, Silicon Beach thing here. I'm in LA. We call it Silicon Beach, Santa Monica, Venice. That's what we
Yeah.
call it. But the level of professionalism, the level of intelligence that these HBCU students came with, right? And then to see the work that Angela and Chad and UNCF San Francisco was already doing, plugging them, with the plug and plays of the world, them having relationships with the Y Combinators of the world, right? I mean, that's where the innovation is coming out of. So for me, it's like, okay, maybe we support that part. Maybe we don't necessarily focus so much on incubator, accelerator, right? Even though they're there, how about we partner with people who are already doing the work? We do what we're great at. My background is raising capital. I love raising capital. I love working with funds. I love private equity. These are my relationships, my network. I love on the for-profit side, working with corporations. I've done it ever since I was in high school. I've done deals and pitch deals from working from the NBA to just crazy thinking. I was always a crazy thinking kid. So I always had these crazy big ideas, and people thought I was crazy because I was pitching the NBA in 10th grade with ideas, and so that's just my thing. So I'm a facilitator. So I said, okay, I see what Angela's doing. UNCF that's great. Let's do what we love to do. Let's facilitate and let's introduce people, our network, to what they're doing, right? And then we moved on and say, okay, cool. We also have a relationship now with the YMCA, the CEO of the YMCA here in LA, right? So we're doing the same thing. You already have a brand, you've already been doing the work. Let us support you. And inside of that, we'll figure out later how you guys can support us. But right now, let's just get busy in the work you're already doing. What do you need? Versus, okay, how can you serve me as a startup? Right. But how can we get nimble and get agile in what the frameworks that you already have? And then as we grow, as we continue to figure out things, I mean, that's what startup is. You get busy, you figure out who you are, how you want to show up, you do the research, and that would happen with us. So I love Angela's philosophy because I feel like if more people look at it that way, you're not coming out and it's like, oh, it just has to be about me. Right. And you have to go in and and it happens. You see backstabbing in these things and these organizations and taking people's relationships without communicating and all these weird things that you wouldn't think would happen in this philanthropic space, but it does. So I think when we have more people who can come together and say, hey, group economics, let's work together. What do you already have going on? Guess what? It makes me look stronger, right? And if I can get more people, it's not I have to take, right? Take, and then it has to be about me. No, it's what can we give? How can we add value? How can we do this together? And then inside of that, of course, we'll get some resources later, but I think the initial focus needs to be the objective, right? Because if you're really in the space, it's what needs to get done. What are the challenges? What are the shortfalls? Okay, what needs to happen? Who do we need to be introduced to? Where are the resources, right? That's where my mind kind of goes. So I like the idea, and Angela preaches that a lot, and I love that. And I think also what I love and what I've got out of this, even the relationship from someone like Angela, who's been on the, I would say, leadership side of this space, right? I think it's important too. I mean, I'm one of those guys, I'm always excited. I'm ready to run and go. But I think what we learned from people who are, older than us, more mature, have been in the space for quite a bit of time, is to say, hey, I understand you're running and gunning, but hey, here's some things that you need to understand how this space operates. Maybe we move this way. Maybe you do this way. I think that's what we get as well, even from our organization as a young startup, is the wisdom in it. So that's why I love the whole group economics, the collective thinking. And that's what I've gotten out of this relationship with UNCF and Chad and Angela. So I just wanted to speak that because I think that's important, right? Because a lot of people try to just go solo and realize that I forgot the quote. I think it's like, by yourself, you can do one thing, but with many, you can go further. I don't know the actual quote. That's a real thing. I forgot who the successful guy who it was. He said, but I'd rather have, I think he said 1% of 100 people's efforts than 100% of one, right? Because you can get done, right? When you have more people working together. So,
I do want to add on to that. And I want everyone to know Terry, from the time we met and he was like, oh, I know Dr. Chad Womack. It was like we just hit it off. We are basically like friends, family, right? And I respect him and his knowledge and everything. And from day one, he is like, Angela, whatever you need from me to support the work that you and Chad are doing, I am here to do it. Chad supported me when I was so young in the business. And just to have that extension, everybody think because you work for a national organization with a huge brand that you don't need that hand of kindness, right? And as I move and do work for this organization and for the greater good, I think about people that may be younger or people who just need that one opportunity or that door open. And if you are around me when we have these dinners and conversations, you will see that sometimes I won't even give individuals name tags. I don't want you to be known by your title or your name because in that in itself becomes inequity because if you've been in the business world for a while and if you've been to these networking events, what do? You go to the person that has the highest title or work at the largest company because you that is going to be your biggest blessing. I am a firm believer you never know where your blessing may come. A lot of people talk to me, and just because of my title, think, oh, she's fundraising. But believe me, I can be your biggest blessing in the room because of all of the connections and
I was just going to say, your network or your Rolodex is probably golden. Anybody who does what you do is going to have connections.
Yes. So as Terry was saying, it really is about mindset. Stand strong in that. And we need to change it just in the world, period. We have to remove these least titles and positions and financial standards that you are better than someone. We have to change how you love on people and respect people. And there's unspoken protocol, there's spoken protocol. And you would never understand how many people I've met who are not aware of those unspoken conversations and respect levels, right? It's like if Terry introduced me to somebody, I will always ask Terry, do you need to be a part of the meetings? What is your expectation? What is it that you need to get out of it? I just believe there's a line of respect that I need to adhere to anybody that introduced me to somebody. But some people just have this hustle mentality where it's a comment, grab and go kind of situation. So I am trying to reimagine as adults, what if we had the space to be the authentic self, the best version of ourselves? What if money wasn't an issue, title wasn't an issue, positioning wasn't an issue, but I could just come in from a spiritual and heart space and do what I know is best for the common good? And imagine everything that could happen, because I believe everybody has a very intelligent part or spirit that was given to them. Now, many of us may have misused it or misdirected it, but when you come in alignment, incredible things happen. So I try to push that in a way that people feel safe to release things that no longer serve them for their greater good.
Well, clearly you do a really good job at that. What I want to do is end up talking about what cool events and things like that you got in place that help you do the fundraising for the efforts that you do there. And I know you've got some, so share a little bit with us.
Well, we are always fundraising and looking for opportunities to raise money for our students, our HBCUs, and working with Dr. Chad Womack, as I stated, for the past 13 years, he has been bringing students to the Bay Area to immerse them for a 4 to 5 day curated experience. And what that means is that, as Terry spoke about earlier, it's almost like a conference for computer science STEM students, and there's expert speakers, there's fire chats, there's on-hands learning experience, external experiences, meaning that we will take them to one of our partner campuses and they get to experience conversation with executives, employees. They may have an assignment to do, a hands-on assignment. Then we have like a career fair that exposes them to several top major corporations that they probably would not have. Well, they could go through the portal and be like everybody else, but we bring the recruiters right to them. And so this year, our fundraising efforts is around 3 signatory events, and that's one coming up September the 20th through the 29th, which is in partnership with the Monterey Jazz Festival. And so it has become STEAM. They were my partner in March 2024. And so what we're doing, I've created the UNCF I Rise Executive Empowerment Experience, which kicks off on the 25th with a welcome dinner at Pebble Beach. And then we will have golfing at the links at Spanish Bay. And then there will be other high network activations that will happen that will allow everyone that we've invited, which will be 50 to 70 executives across the country, have opportunities. They're in different verticals, industries, to come together to, one, hear the vision of Dr. Chad Womack on HBCU West and the work around innovation, commercialization, research and development, and on a higher level of education. And we're building bridges, hopefully, with the UCs, the Stanfords, our corporations that positions our students and faculty first to work on innovative projects, right? That would allow them to own their work, their IP, and think about entrepreneurship that would then lead them into generational wealth. So that particular event is the kickoff of our fundraising to bring awareness, visibility, and to expand the ecosystem. And then we continue to fundraise in various ways, restricted or unrestricted. Restricted meaning scholarships and various programs and things, and unrestricted is workplace giving, or anyone who may want to just donate to the general operational fund of UNCF and to our institutions. And that leads up to March 17th through the 23rd of 2025 will be the 14th year for the iRise Tech Summit for our HBCU students. As I stated, we handpicked. We choose from across 102 of the HBCU institutions, and we bring those students to California to immerse them into the 4-day curated experience. My hope is that more corporations will come to join and be a part of it, whether it's from workforce development, innovation, tech entrepreneurship, We want your presence. We want your brand. We want to make the connections. And then we capstone that full week off with the UNCF Gala. And that is event for community excellence, Black excellence. We award 2 to 3 people in the community in a corporation that has done great work in supporting the mission of UNCF. We have about 600 to 700 guests. It's a black tie event. So it's our way of saying thank you for a great year. Thank you for your partnership and showcasing the work that they're doing in the community or being a strong pillar in the community that's making change.
Wow, that's a lot. It's a lot going on your plate, especially with the ones that are coming up pretty quickly. I know you'll share some more, details with us and maybe in a flyer or something like that, so that, if you're seeing this interview, then go to frontrunnersdevelopment.com and look for the podcast, and you'll see this interview. Hit that page, and then you'll find the information that you're looking for that will help you determine about attending these events. That sound fantastic, actually. They sound like
Yes.
loads of fun, and it looks like you're going to be very successful in doing these things. I tell you
It
what
was
I
so
want to do. I want to
much
get
fun,
to
Mary.
know Chad Womack. That's what I want to do. I want to get to know that guy.
For sure,
Yeah,
I believe that,
he's a phenomenal human being, for sure. So
yes,
you're
for sure, I
blessed.
think you should have Dr. Chad Womack. He is a very intelligent, brilliant scientist doing great work on many verticals. And the core of his heart is to make sure our communities and our students are elevated to the highest they can be. And he just do that through science and computer engineering, entrepreneurship,
Heart.
amazing.
He's got heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the big thing. It sounds like he's got all of that, and then cares about creating impact with all that he does, all the gifts that he has. So I want to end up saying, Terry, thank you so much for not only being here, but introducing us to Angela, so that we all get a chance to meet her and get to know what she does.
Absolutely.
And wow, I mean, this has been kind of a part philosophical conversation, which is, reinforces a lot of the values that we hope to espouse out there and to bring to everybody's attention. And just want to say, Angela, you're a gem. They're so blessed to have you. And so thank you for all the good work that you're doing, and I know we'll continue to do. They just need to hang on to you, and after Terry's words, that's going to be tough to do because people are going to want to grab you and take you for themselves. Anyway, I wrote down like about 5 names. I've got a call coming up in about 10 or 15 minutes, but if you'll hang with me, I want to share just a little bit, and then, because I always do that, I write down names that people need to know. Terry knows that. I can't help myself. It's what I do. But I would say goodbye to everybody else, and be sure to catch us next time on Front Runners Innovate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.